Hello, my name is Margaret Graziano, and I'm here today to talk about something everybody wants. Not that many people know how to get it, and that's happiness at work. How do you experience work as somebody with the autonomy, the agency, and the freedom to create happiness anytime, any place, anywhere? Now you might say, well, Magi, I can't do that because I work for John or I work for Bob, and you don't know how terrible John or Bob or Sally is. But the truth is you have a choice about where you work, and you have a choice about how you feel, and you have a choice about what you tolerate and don't tolerate. Now, are you running the company? Are you the CEO of the company? Maybe, maybe not. As long as you feel an alignment with the place you work and what they do, what they're contributing, and you feel like you are bringing your best, you're on the right track. So let's get started with happiness at work. I got to get my clicker. I guess that would help. So the first thing we want to do is I want to take you to a place that you probably and most often are not at work. And that place is a place of grounding. So we're going to do a mini exercise right now. Close your eyes. And if you don't want to close your eyes, open your eyes and I will move out of the way. And just look at the water trickling down into the bigger pool of water. And imagine that every time water drops into a bigger pool of water, the energy of that water continues to ripple out. And now I want you to close your eyes and imagine a body of water that you really like. And you like being there, you feel a certain way when you're there. And that way you feel is that all is well with the world. Now, with your eyes closed, I want you to experience standing in front of that body of water right now. What do you smell? What do you see? Mostly, how do you feel? Bring that sense into you, into your heart, and expand it by 20%. And now 20 more percent. Now breathe in that good energy up through your feet, through your legs, up through your hips, and hold it and let it expand beyond your arms and beyond your legs. Now, think about where you are and how often you get there. Please open your eyes. You'll see that you could get to this place anytime, anywhere, even in a work meeting. You just have to go there, and you have to practice and build the muscle to get there. So take a second, minute, pause the video, and write down some of your thoughts about that place, how you feel when you're there, and maybe how you can experience more of that at work. You see, well-being comes from within. It doesn't come from outside of you. It doesn't come from your circumstance. It doesn't come from even where you are geographically or what you do for a living. It's how tuned in you are and how often you access that well-being. So I'll give you a minute and start to take a journal note. All right, welcome back. What I want you to remember about that journal and about that visualization is the well within is within. I'm going to introduce you to a model of leadership that myself and some of my coaches have all been trained to, and it's called the coactive leadership model. We've changed it a little bit to adapt to the Keen Alignment Leadership Accelerator and Momentum Coaching Program. But it all begins with a healthy relationship with the leader within. That is who you are for you, your self-authority, your self-belief, how you experience yourself, how much power you step into when you're going for what you want, when you're addressing the people you work with, when you're sharing your ideas, when you're talking to someone of authority, when you're putting your own oxygen mask on and making sure you're grounding yourself before a tough meeting or before the day, or working out or meditating or eating right. That's all the leader within. It's self-care, self-authority. Now, we're doing some research for a book that I'm writing, and right now, the statistics show, Gallup and many others, say that employee engagement is down to only 38% of employees are fully engaged in their role. Only 38% of employees are fully engaged in their role. That means over 70% of people are disengaged. So if you're like most people, and I was reading an article actually, I was reading this article from 2023, and what it says is burned out, more Americans want to work part-time. That's from last year. So lack of engagement, burnout, overwhelm, this is just bombarding each and every one of us at work. And I think what we do is we compromise our self-care for this belief that we need to achieve, and we need to be number one, and we need to survive, and we need to prove that we're good in our job, and there's no time for us. But what happens is when you do not tune your fork or your internal piano, when you do not act like a tuning fork for your own internal piano, you can't lead from the top. Your vision won't be as clear, because when you have 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day and 85% of them are negative and repetitive, 85% of 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, hard to be above the power and freedom line. Hard to think that we have agency and autonomy and freedom in our work. Hard to feel that self-expression is even available to us. Because what we're stuck with when we have all those thoughts, and 85% of them being negative and repetitive, is what we're stuck with is cognitive scattering. And we're pulled below the power and freedom line. When we think negative thoughts, we've got a lot of adrenaline and cortisol running through our body. Our amygdala is telling us, hey, warning, something bad's going to happen. Not only that, the average human being in a first world country has 140,000 messages coming at them a day from the outside world. But your brain, your prefrontal cortex, can only, even in your sphere of awareness, grab onto 120 out of 140,000. So if you're not tuning your fork, well, tuning your piano with your tuning fork. There's an REO song, like if you're not tuning the fish or tuna, whatever. If you're not taking the time to tune in to what this needs, mind, body, and spirit, then what happens is you're like a ship or a boat, a rowboat in the ocean, being tossed around by the latest problem at work or some bad behavior from a coworker. You become a victim to circumstance rather than the captain of your own ship. You know, people who hire me to be their coach, they say, Magi, I want to be the master of my own domain. I want to be the captain of my own ship, and I feel like I'm lost at sea, or some people actually say lost in space. So if you want to have clear vision for yourself, your team, and your organization, you got to nurture that leader within for sure, and that's what our training is about today. If you want to be able to partner with others and really lean in and count on people and build trust, you have to have trust with yourself first. Happiness requires we have self-trust. And happiness at work requires we have cohesive, functional relationships with our coworkers, those that report to us, and people we report to. We spend 70% of our waking hours at work. Primary reason my company, Keen Alignment, is hired is because organizations aren't achieving their goals. They've got friction, infighting, siloing, and people are unhappy. Nobody wants to spend 70% of their work life in a shitstorm. So leading from the side and building trust and honoring our own leadership within, and then creating a powerful vision for ourselves, our team, our organization, all part of the happiness quotient. Leading from the back, you got to be able to delegate or you're never going to have time off. You're never going to have time to take care of yourself. You're never going to have time to put your own oxygen mask on. So leading from the back is guiding, coaching, mentoring, directing, and redirecting people. It's getting out of the way and elevating others. One of the things I love to see when I do a leadership assessment is a high score in developing others. Because if somebody has a high score in developing others and they have a real desire for freedom and for creativity and maybe even to challenge themselves to do more, then they're motivated to do better in the area of delegating authority. A lot of people don't score too well on that accountability, but you see where there's a will, the skill can be developed. And between developing others and accountability and clear and accurate, concise information, conversations for action, and building trust, you can develop the leader from the back. Super important to happiness that you can download the things that are not mentally stimulating for you to do, that don't stretch you, that don't get you where you want to go in your future. You know what has people be unhappy? When they're bogged down with low-level routine work that doesn't challenge and stimulate their creativity. That's what has people be unhappy. That's what has you be unhappy. The final area, and it's not final, it's like everything. This is the leader from the field. The leader from the field is the part of you that is notating what's going on with the energy, the part of you that can read the space, read what's not being said, using your intuition and your insight to come up with really creative solutions, not only of how to move people to action, but how to eliminate these constraints, whether they're emotional constraints or whether they're organizational constraints, how to remove them from being a distraction. You can't be in your happiness zone if you're overwhelmed. You can't be in your happiness zone if you're trying to figure out what's going on. You can't be in your happiness zone where there's volatility, uncertainty, chaos, confusion, and ambiguity, and you're not seeking to shift that. So today, it's about happiness at work, and it begins with the leader within. And I really want you to hear that the rest of these energy fields and competency centers are required no matter what role you're in, because let's say you're not in a leadership role at work, but you have toilets to clean at home, grocery shopping to do. You can leverage automation or services or Thumbtack or TikTok to get people to help you so you can spend more of your time in your genius zone and more of your time doing the things that make you happy. So let's look at the above and below the line. This is a barometer for effectiveness. It's the 7 levels of individual, group, and organizational effectiveness. And if you follow me on YouTube and subscribe and get our newsletters and take advantage of our free content that we release, you may know the 7 levels. Well, today we're going to give you a little bit of a different experience in the 7 levels. If you're operating in a state of frustration, this is you are agitated, aggravated, annoyed. you can only be effective 25% of the time. If you're in the state of fear, you can only be effective 10% of the time, and hopelessness 5% of the time. But check this out. If you can be in courage, you're going to be effective 65% of the time, engagement 75% of the time, and innovation 85% of the time, or synchronicity 95% of the time. So this is what these mean. In synchronicity, you are looking at life and everything that happens as this is happening for me. This is a lesson. This is something for me to learn. Who am I being that this would happen? Who am I being that I would delegate this authority and it wouldn't get done right? Instead of pointing over there, what are they doing wrong? In synchronicity, without beating myself up, I look at maybe, what am I doing? There's a whole lot of freedom and a whole lot of power in the state of synchronicity. And I'm effective most of the time. I can also see the whole. I can see the forest. I can see the trees. I can see the organization as a whole. I can see the ecosystem of the organization. I could see the entire community, and I could see the people and all the work they're doing because I have access to my full brain power, right hemisphere, left hemisphere, the entire integration of my prefrontal cortex. When I am in hopelessness right here, and I'm still learning to navigate this even after all these years, hopelessness, I can only be 5%. I am in the depths, in the depths, in the depths of despair. For me, I experienced hopelessness, and you can check out the story in one of my other YouTube episodes when I started a software company and when the guy that I partnered with was trying to steal my intellectual property and I had to get it back. I lost a ton of money, I lost a lot of self-esteem, and it was a person in my life, my son, who pulled me up and said, my mother, the woman who raised me, would never do that. Now, I share that story with you, or the briefness, the brevity of the story, because in hopelessness, often we can't get ourselves out of it. We need help. I don't recommend, if you're in hopelessness for a long, long time, you hire a coach. You probably need to hire a therapist and really get yourself out of that rut. But I do recommend you take action towards a positive future. Even think about something you like doing, or repeat that meditation in the very, very beginning, or look at those bodies of water, and it'll shift your energy. In fear, we can only be effective 10% of the time. That means 90% of the time we're ineffective. Fear is you've got adrenaline and cortisol shaking through your body, running through your body, shutting you down, attacking, by the way, your vital organs, everything in here, and attacking your brain. You can't think straight in fear. You're in a state of either protection or hiding out or keeping people at bay, but you're in a zone of you can't get to me and I can't get to you. You're disconnected when you're in fear. When you're in fear, one of the things that you can do, and we're going to talk about this today in this training, is melt that fear and get to the root of what is that fear trying to tell me. Because instead of wallowing in the fear, we got to learn from it. Frustration, this is a lot of energy actually, 25% effective. We're 25% effective in a state of frustration. So people say, Magi, frustration is good. It's the mother of invention. However, if we're always in frustration, we're knocking down people, leaving dead bodies, sucking the life out of the room. Having frustration is a sign we need to make a change. Being agitated is a sign something isn't working. And instead of looking everywhere else, look within. Because that agitation, that annoia, is there to teach you something. When you're in this state of courage and you could really feel like a true belief that something good is going to happen, something great is going to happen. You don't know how, but you feel that energy. It's expansive energy. This energy is serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, kind of the same way when you're running or you sign up for an event or you take a class, you register for a class that's going to teach you something you didn't know before, like a foreign language or cooking or physics, and you feel like, yeah, man, I am stepping forward. That's the energy of courage. Now, if we talk about culture, many people who follow me on YouTube and Instagram, they want to know about how do we not just align ourselves, how do we align our team, or how do we align our organization? When you talk about culture, people need to be in a state of courage, which means they need to believe that what you are all about actually makes a difference for people, does good on the planet and for people. And they also need to believe that they can do good working in your organization for your cause. And they need to see themselves fulfilling on their own commitments through working with your organization. When they see a positive future and they see themselves as part of it, you've got this state of courage, which means 65% of the time people are effective. Now, engagement, this is being all in, really playing the game, being on the court, not in the stands, being in the game, experiencing the wins, the losses, the losses. In engagement, it's not about what you can't do, it's about what you can do. It's not about looking at limitations, it's about looking at strengths. It's about trying and failing and celebrating and high-fiving. You know, what I love about Orange Theory is they not only have gamified fitness, but they make the whole thing about community. They have parties for their members. They all high-five each other. You're comparing your stats, but it's instead of saying Magi was the winner or Joey was the winner, they say we had X amount of results in today's workout. They really do a great job of understanding community and celebrating. And if you want to learn, Orange Theory is a great way to learn how to create engagement. And they're not giving away money, they're giving away an experience. And we need to take this to our families and our organizations. Innovation. In a state of innovation, we can be effective 85% of the time. Now, here's why. Because in innovation, your ego is no longer part of the show. It's not about whose idea it was and whose job is it and who's going to own this. It's what can we do from a blank canvas to create a whole new world. I let go of my ego. I let go of my sword. I let go of my shield. I put my weapons down, and I'm open to take a blank canvas and a paintbrush and create. Now, you've got to have a culture that is fertile ground for courage, engagement, and innovation, whether it's the culture of your family human system or the culture of your organizational human system. You've got to have a culture that has an environment where people can thrive, that has an environment for emergence to bubble up, that has an environment of trust and psychological safety, that has an environment where we're asking people for their opinion, that has an environment where it's okay for me to say, man, I really screwed up. I didn't give you all the information, or I realized I was wrong, or I'll do a Fonz. I was wrong. If anybody knows who the Fonz is. If you don't, Google him. He's a pretty cool guy from 1980 or 70, probably the 70s. So in a state of sync, we already talked about that. 7 levels of individual, group, and organizational effective is very powerful for you to hold as a barometer. But I want to make it really clear. It's not about beating yourself up for where you are on this chart. It's about saying, man, I'm going to go up and down this chart all day long. I'm going up, I'm going down, I'm going here, I'm going there. What is happening? Why is it happening? What am I learning from this experience? And by the way, tuning into your body. How does your body feel? Mostly when a person is below the line, they've got lots of dis-ease going on here and here. When a person is above the line, they've got this effervescent energy like, woo, shining from them. So you want to spend more time. And remember, the leader within, this is your barometer. So when we're looking at happiness, happiness at work. For yourself and your role, two separate processes, but I want you to know you can use this model for your individuality, for yourself as a mom, a dad, a brother, a son, a daughter, a sister, any role outside of work, but you can also use it for your role. So what is the ultimate intent of your role? Why does your role exist? If you don't know, do some thinking about that. Interview some people about that. Why does the organization budget for your role? What's your ultimate reason for being there? What's the purpose of that role? Now, when I say from goals to purpose, it doesn't mean you don't have goals. There's always goals, but what's the why? What's the why? If you understand the why, you are more likely to be able to cut through the noise, the nonsense, the distraction, the crazy making that happens in business, the friction, and you could move through it to stay on track and stay in alignment. So for yourself, the noble cause is what's your calling, what's your dharma, what's your purpose, what's your individual aim. Where am I going? What's my life about? For me, my life is about liberating people. My company's noble cause is to forever liberate the human spirit. My manager of content distribution, his noble cause is to share knowledge and democratize the liberation of the human spirit so people can get it anytime, any place, any way. So first and foremost, what's the intent of your role? Why are you there? What's your personal aim? And is it being fulfilled in the intent of your role? I wish for all of you that you're in a role, or you can create a role, or you work for yourself and start a business that marries your personal intent, your aim, with your professional intent or the organization's noble cause and your contribution in it. Secondly, we have to look at what's the environment you're surrounding yourself in. Do you have inspirational values identified for yourself? Like for me, abundance is a value. And with that, a behavior of generosity comes. And also for me, integrity is a value. And with that comes rigor around doing what I say I'm going to do and keeping my agreements. My organization, one of our core values is impeccability and precision. So doing what we need so that we're delivering what people need to have liberation in their workplace. So mine are really aligned. And again, I own my own business, I get it. But it's really important for you to look at if the world is filled with friction, political friction, organizational friction, family friction, healthcare friction, financial friction. The world is filled with friction. How do I live a life above the line? How do I bring in these flow states, which happen when you're in courage, engagement, innovation, and synchronicity? How do I bring in more of these flow states into my business, my team, and my home life, and my personal life with me? It begins with values and not just words on a wall. It begins with you really having a touchstone for what those words mean to you, how those words shape an environment, how those words and that environment shapes your thinking. So values are way, way, way more. In my coaching school, when I went to certification, I've always talked about values and had values, but this exercise, and we now do it with the people in our momentum coaching program, where you're looking at, 50 possible values, but you're picking the top 10, and then you're picking the top 7, and then you're picking the top 3. And then you write a statement of what life would look like if you were living true to those values. what you'd say yes to, what you say no to, what boundaries you would establish. I work with a gal, and she's working with one of her counterparts, and he blows her off for most meetings, and then he just demands everybody be at a meeting. And I said to her, why don't you just tell him you can't make it? Oh, because it's the only time he's available. I said, and unless somebody stands up for themselves around his bullying around schedules, because it is bullying when you're unorganized and you can't make meetings you give your word to, and then you create other meetings on top of people's other meetings, and then you demand people go, and then everybody goes. Well, that's kind of like being an arrogant poop and not having any respect for anybody else's time, and that's bullying. So anyway, that's one of a gazillion ways of how we have a non-functional environment. But for you, how do you create an environment that works for you, your family, your coworkers at work around you, and how you relate to work? This is where healthy boundaries live. Now let's go to architecture. Architecture is like framework. Now, boundaries, I don't consider framework because it's too rigid. When you really get good with what's important to you and how you're going to live your life, boundaries become invisible thread that is woven through your communication, how you be, how you act. So we don't say architecture is boundaries because they're not cement walls. Architecture is a way of operating. So in my organization, every Monday we have check-ins. We have daily reporting because everybody who works here is an independent network of contribution. It's all these amazing people who have different paths in life, some coaches, some consultants, some culture, some individual performance, some DEI, some women's empowerment, some marketing, some sales, some email, everybody is a specialist and they bring their specialty skill to this organization. Well, we need framework. Otherwise, it would be a state of chaos because everyone's doing their own thing. So we have monthly meetings with all the coaches. We have an agenda, but it's a very thinly scaled agenda because we want to co-create in the moment, because that is what an emergent culture is. It's emerging, it's rising up, it's meeting the moments, it's learning to read the space and saying, what do we need now and now and now? So architecture, how do I give myself some framework so that I can be operating more of the time in my genius zone? If you want to be happy for the rest of your life, challenge your mind rather than paying attention to the strife. Seriously here. I just made that little poem or rhyme, but seriously, we will always gravitate to low-hanging fruit. We'll be bored, but what our brain wants, what our prefrontal cortex wants, what our left hemisphere integration wants, is for us to be operating in our genius zone. So we need framework for what am I going to do? What am I going to delegate? What am I going to never do again? I'm deleting it completely. And what am I going to delay? Back in the early 2000s, I took a class called Mission Control with who now is a good friend of mine, Kurt Hill. And he said, I'm not doing that now. We're never doing that now. And that's how we learn to take things off and prioritize. Or I'm doing that now. And if I'm doing it now, I'm scheduling it. That's architecture that way. That's architecture. Now I can also make a list of the things when I'm doing time stops for me. I love leading retreats, especially for people who are totally committed to having breakthroughs. I love coaching, and I only coach people who are playing a big game and already know change is not an option. And I love creating content that I think will make a difference. When I get to do those things, I am just in my happy zone. What I don't love is paying bills, but I do it. But I also automate it. And I also have a CPA who is also part of my network of contribution. She does all my financial statements. I don't love doing anything mechanical, anything technical. So I hire pros and they come in and bring their expertise. I don't love analysis. I don't love video editing. So I bring people in. Other architecture that I have is I have a gym membership to Orange Theory. I have registered for their marathon month. That's architecture, it's framework. I'm out there running, I'm pumping the weights, I'm doing walks with my dog. Other architecture I have that helps me stay honest and in integrity with myself is I actually have a behavioralist that's working with me on my dog. Turns up, same things that happen with kids happen with dogs. And my dog is trying to jump all over me and telling me he's the boss when that's not true. And when I think about it, when my kids were little, I worked a lot, probably didn't let them know who boss man was or boss woman was. So you learn a lot when you have dogs and you begin again. So architecture, some other architecture I have. I've got the coaches meeting. I've got my morning ritual with every day doing meditation. When you look at what do I want to create in my life? What's my intent? Work and personal. What are the values that are important to me that help me stay true to me, how I want to be, how I want to respond, how I want to live, and how I want to play and work, and what's the framework I need? And we don't build that framework in cement. We build it so we can shore it up and change when we need to. Really important to be in this state of happiness. Now, on the 7 levels, I talked about power and freedom line is the baseline when you stand into courage. If you read Dave Hawkins' book, Consciousness Map, he gives you the energy zones from true synchronicity all the way down to hopelessness. And this magic number 550 on the megahertz vibrational scale is, and it's this spinning vibration, 550 scale is the joy scale. That's somewhere between engagement and innovation. So we all want to be in the 550 zone. We want to be in the joy zone. And following this basic, simple 3-step process will help you do it. I've got a master class that you can register for on organizational culture, or we've got Evolve the Leader Within. We do these exercises in all of our coursework, so check it out. So what's your aim? When you think about what makes you happy, when time stops and you're just fully engaged, what are you doing? What are your natural gifts? Years ago, I took a class from Jack Canfield. It was called Breakthrough to Success. He had us make a list of 100 successes we've had. He had us make a list of 100 goals, things we wanted to do before we die. Not like just earning money or writing a book, but walk the Camino, visit the jungle, sail to an island. In doing those lists of 100, what we do now when we're coaching people in our momentum coaching program is we have them draw parallel lines. What are all these successes and all these dreams? What are they telling us about what's important to us? When you make a list of all your successes, you wouldn't be successful at something if it was pain and misery to get there. I'm not saying it's all easy, but the whole thing couldn't have been pain or you would have stopped doing it. There's something, if you're a doctor, that you liked about studying, or a lawyer that you liked about reading, or a speaker that you liked about sharing, or an accountant that you liked about analyzing. I think you get the drift. The aim, your North Star, is what calls you to be. So again, mine is people are liberated. Here I am out there. I want to get more speaking opportunities. I want to touch and influence 1 million people to choose courage as their baseline so they can live in alignment. Courage is required to live in alignment. So I'm up in my game and I have a coach for speaking and I'm doing new speaking reels and getting feedback. Well, you're not as good as this one, not as good as that one. I could have quit 9 million times, but for sure I could have quit 2 weeks ago when I went in to do my talk. And the guy that was videoing me said, just so you know, you show up like a workshop instructor, not like a keynote. And I took it to heart. And then I started self-doubting myself and 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 self-doubting myself. Pretty soon I didn't even know who I was. All I was thinking about was a gin and tonic. I didn't drink a gin and tonic. I went to a health food store and ate health food and then passed out because my brain was burning so many calories about thinking how I was going to get from here to here. The next morning I woke up, I did a meditation. I went to Orange Theory, did my workout, and I got out of there and said, I am who I am. I know I have what it takes, and I am unique, and I can deliver at the keynote level. We are always going to have people who tell us we're not, we can't, we shouldn't. Someone else will always be better. But when you have an aim like mine, people are liberated. It ain't about me and my insecurities. It's about the contribution I am making on the planet, and same for you. The aim, you can say your aim is about making a lot of money, but it'll mean more if you're going to do something powerful with that money beyond buying yourself a really nice boat. The boat's nice, but what are you going to do? You're going to fund your kids' college. You're going to help your parents into retirement. You're going to donate 1,000 hours to some great cause. What are you going to do? How are you going to give back? Alignment is not a straight line. There's a lot of twists and turns, and we've got two distinctions that we teach in our momentum coaching program and all of our online classes to one degree or the other, and that's there's the goal, there's what I want to do, there's I got to get this accomplished, I want to buy a house, I want a boat, actually I don't want a boat, I would love to have a mountain home, I want to spend more time with my grandkids, and I would like to have a place to stay there that I'm not paying $1,000 or $1,500 every time I go visit them because I'm allergic or they don't have the room or whatever. I want to be there for my mom in her golden ages. I want to be a great dog owner, and I want Spirit to be an agility champion. And I want to fund an adoption every year for somebody that really wants a baby who can't have one. Those are my goals. But my soul, this soul line up and down, squiggly over here, connected to my heart, is what I need to do for me that's going to ensure I'm happy. Now, one of the things I've learned in the last 2 years for myself, actually since COVID, is that I needed to have stronger agreements between myself and myself for what I would give in my business and what I require in my business. And I'm really seeing a lot of progress, especially after my journey to the Camino and my journey to Iquitos, Peru in the jungle. And I've got stories about that on YouTube. If you subscribe, you can check that out. What I was allowing people to do is take my time. Now my time, I'm a coach. I charge for my time. I do give trainings like this, and I often do a lot of free trainings, but people were coming to me so that I could mentor them and coach them so they could be and use my skills and the domain that I've created and become masterful at in their own businesses, but they didn't want to pay me for my time. And so I would make deals. I would say, okay, I'll barter. I'll coach you for an hour. You got to deliver this to me. And there was quite a few people who wanted the free coaching, wanted to sit in on all my coaching calls, wanted to read and go through our whole library and our online growth lab with 40 or more courses, wanted to talk to our coaches, but they didn't want to give us anything. And one after the other, I just had the most amazing conversations about here's what my business needs, here's what you need, here's what I need. And for us to work together, we have to have parallel lines. It has to be reciprocal. Now that's a boundary. And if you're honoring and nurturing your own soul, you will have boundaries. Like, you know what? I'm available to meet with you on these times, these 3 days a week. But if you book something on top of something I already had, I'm sorry, I can't make that meeting available. Because people treat us how we give them permission to treat us. You don't have to get angry, you don't have to get nasty, but you can say to people, I no longer can work here, or I no longer want you working with me because I'm not getting my side of the equation. It's really powerful, especially when you do it from your heart. And you combine these worlds of soul and goal. Now you might say, well, Magi, you don't work for my boss. He's constantly throwing things on my desk. Is he really? Is she really? Or have you said yes? I have another guy, we're going to call him Jim, that I work with, and Jim says, everyone else in my department comes in at 9 and leaves at 4. But I'm here at 7 every day, and I stay till 7 every night. I don't see my kids. I am demonstrating hard work. And he says, my boss never acknowledges me for it. I said, maybe your boss doesn't care when you work. He goes, but I want him to know. I said, why? Why? You're making great money. It's a professional organization. Are you hitting your goals? Yes, I am. Then why do you need to work all those hours and compromise your soul, time with your children, for working just to show you're working? Folks, it's about results. It is about the goal. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be around to fulfill on that goal. So I invite you to make a list of the areas where you are currently compromised. What are you tolerating? What are you putting up with? What are you overlooking or overstepping or not paying attention to that you need to, so that you can bring yourself back in alignment with your goal and your soul, who you are, what your aim is, how you want to live your life, and what structure you need. So what we want to do today is we want to go over fear melters. But to do that, we have to take a little inventory quickly, and I'll move out of your way so you can see fight. If you respond when things are not going the way you want, and you respond in this category, your fear garage, or the place you park your car, like Tony Robbins says, your garage might be fight. But if you respond in flee, I'm out of here, pulling back, avoiding, panic, your home base might be anxiety or fear from the 7 levels. If you freeze, you get stuck, you stop engaging, you just, don't respond at all, you can't speak, you're hesitant, startled, or even alarmed, or terrified, or paralyzed, you'll be in freeze. And then faint is like you're checked out, man. Shaky, drained, numb, tired, so tired, out of it. So these 4 categories, and next we're going to go over what you do with them. So I'm just going to do fight because that is my primary, actually it was my primary as I've matured and done a lot of work on myself. Actually, when I went to the jungle in Iquitos, Peru, just last year, I realized I was on a 12-day journey within, and we used plant medicine, and I realized I had so much anxiety and fear in my body that's been there forever, and I just always felt that's just the way I feel, but I didn't name it as fear and anxiety. So when a little kid is looking at the blackboard and they really can't see the blackboard, and then they go and they get glasses and they're like, oh my gosh, I can see. That's how I was about anxiety. I didn't realize that tenseness in my stomach and my chest and in my even legs and hands was this anxiety riddling through me. And it showed up as a younger woman as anger. And as I've matured and I've got more in touch with my own heart and my own soul, I realize it's fear. So if anger is your go-to place, you want to actually express your anger, be angry, and then times it by 10% and be more angry. So you can pause the video and try your own. When I'm doing this with people that I'm coaching, I say, turn off the video and close your drapes so no one at work can see you. Now you've got all that adrenaline and cortisol buzzing up through your brain, through your body, and you take it all and you ooze it out like melted candle, like the witch from The Wizard of Oz. I'm melting, and imagine all of that anger dissipating onto the floor. I'll give you a chance to try that. Now let's say the next place you go is flee. I'm out of here. You root. You don't leave. You sit in that squat position. You balance. You put your hands in the middle of your thighs, above your knees, and you just root. And you imagine that roots are digging into the ground, spreading out under the earth beneath you, and they're anchoring you so that you stay there and you don't psychologically or emotionally disappear. Okay, what's next? What's the third way? Let's go back and just see where we are. Freeze. This is freezing up, being stuck, being hesitant, being paralyzed or terrified. The thing to do is move, 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 move. Move, 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 wiggle, 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 wiggle your body. Now, here's the thing. When I was in Iquitos, Peru, in the jungle, and I was having my experience of the journey within with the shaman and the natives and the plant medicine, and I felt that energy running through my body, my feet were flapping. They were moving. My legs were moving. And I said to myself, oh my God, I've been running my whole life. I've been trying to outrun my childhood trauma my whole life. The good news is intuitively, my body knew I needed to get rid of that anxiety. I needed to shake it out. And so I ran. I did aerobics. I did hiking, biking, and I still do. Because I'd rather have that energy dissipate than internally combust within inside me. So you can pause the video if you want and do some wiggling. But before you do the rooting or the wiggling or the oozing, feel the feels. Feel that level of, oh, gosh, I'm freezing. And now, whoopsie. And now, faint. This is tired, in shock, burned out, unsettled. Things are just not working. This is putting your own oxygen mask on, self-love. Even men, I've been in classes where men are like hugging themselves and they're like, I haven't been hugged all day. Do you know the average person needs 10 hugs a day to release their oxytocin and to get a dose of that? Well, you might have to love yourself or your animal. But love scoops are very, very powerful. You might have to love yourself or your animal, and love scoops tell you that you love you. And it helps you with that faint experience of being collapsed, shaky. You're telling yourself it's okay. So if you can recognize where you're at on the 7 levels, if you can tune into your aim and what's important to you, and you practice your architecture, build those muscles. And then when you recognize where you are on the 7 levels and you're in a state below the line of and when you're in a state below the line of fear, anxiety, hopelessness, you can melt that fear, melt the anger, melt the anxiety, melt the hopelessness, wiggle it out, root it out, love it out. Because after all, nobody is going to help you stay grounded more than you will help you stay grounded. Last but not least, we want to give you some things to think about. When you are afraid, what are you really afraid of? What's going on? What's under that fear and what's under that? What's the root? What else besides fear might be going on right now? What are you doing that's keeping that fear perpetuating? Are you talking about it with people? Are you enrolling people into your story? Are you building up more and more energy and maybe even colluding, gossiping? Who knows? Can you turn the volume up? Remember how I said multiply it by 10%? How about 10 more percent? Can you turn the volume down? After all, you are in control of your emotions. They don't control you. What pace creates fear in you. This is really important to know for burnout. Some people like working at a very, very, very slow pace, but they go so slow, they get tired and they lose their way. Other people like working at an extremely fast pace and they work so fast, everyone around them goes crazy. What's the right pace for you? When I was in recruiting, I always say my secret sauce is I asked people, if you had the ideal role, if I gave you a magic wand, what would you be doing? And then I would say, what's under that? What's under that? What's there? And I would really get to know my candidates. But the next question that I asked that made me unique is on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 being extremely fast-paced and 1 being extremely slow, like boredom, you can paint your nails, 10 being, you haven't gone to the bathroom all day, you don't know what time it is, but you're starving, and you look at the clock and it's 6 p.m., and 5 is in the middle. Where do you want to work at? Where's your sweet spot? It's important that you know what your sweet spot is. It's important that you know if you're overly stimulated on the job or understimulated on the job, because you have to ask for what you need, and only you can do that. Which pace brings you into harmony, and what pace taps into your heart, head, and emotion. And then the fear melters, some other questions you can ask in recalibration. What do you do, or what do you create when you have, let's say, anger and fear? What if you were to do an ooze and a root, or a wiggle and an ooze? What's the pace that's important to you? What pace are you in when you're in that state of joy? What state are you in when you're in a state of anxiety or anger? What pace are you at? So pace, walking, is a really good way to melt fear. Breathing, 6 counts in, hold for 4 counts, 6 counts out. Changing posture when we're working with our leaders in our executive retreats. We have like, this is the leader within. This is the leader from the front. This is the leader from the side where you're leaning into someone. This is the leader from the back where you're spotting. This is the leader from the field. Body intelligence works to tell your mind that you're okay. Now, once you recalibrate, now you got to ask yourself, what do I need to do? What step will I take to create more happiness and bring me into alignment with my aim, the environment that I want to work in and create, and the architecture, my habits, my disciplines that I know help me? What can I actually do now? And I give credit to the Hendrickson Institute because I'm one of the coaches that they changed. That's a Freudian slip. And trained. Conscious use of self. So we think conscious use is our action, but there's a step before that, and that's our emotion. How are we feeling? How's our body feeling? How's our thoughts thinking? How are they making us feel? Then what am I thinking that's making me feel that? And what must I be believing that's having me think that way, that has me react that way, that has me take that action? So understanding how it works, and I call it backing up the truck, really helps us slow our time between stimuli and response. The space between stimuli and response is where emotional maturity, emotional intelligence comes in. When we immediately react, every time something happens, and we got to have a comment, we have to say something, we have to point the finger here or there. When we slow the roll, back up, and stretch the time between whatever happened and whatever we say or do, we're in a higher state of joy. We're in a higher state of reflectivity, of thinking, of seeing, because when we're left up to our own devices in that nanosecond reaction, it's our human animal that is responding. Did you know it only takes 90 seconds to change a thought. 90 seconds. All you got to do is breathe for 90 seconds. Get yourself into a state of, I want to be in joy. Here's my aim. Liberating people. Am I liberated? I'm not. I'm angry. So let's breathe. Let's ooze. Let's wiggle. Let's root. Let's love scoop. Let's consider what we want in our aim and what we might do that has integrity that moves us forward. All of that you can process in 90 seconds. The discipline is giving yourself that 90 seconds. So your aim is what's important to you. Alignment is creating the environment that stimulates you, honoring you, so you can be congruent with that aim. Your path is the path you're walking down to integrate the goal and the soul line, the structure that you put into place. I know you can do it. If you need any support, reach out to me, leave a comment. I do read the comments. Subscribe if you want more. And you can just scan this and be part of our community and be the first to get alerts on new classes we're teaching. Thank you so much. Go get happy.